So if you put food down a UK sink, you are doing it wrong. Hey guys, welcome back to the Girl Gone London channel. If you're new here, my name is Kaylin. I'm an American who's lived in the UK, I had to think about it for a second there, for almost 10 years. And today I am talking about some of the lesser known differences between British homes and American homes. Now, I have done a video about British homes versus American homes where I got a lot of pushback on the topic of washing up bowls. People were very into defending washing up bowls and why you might use them, but despite the 86 million reasons people gave for why you use them, I still cannot get on board with them. I still don't really understand the point. I mean, I understand your points on why you use them, but it wasn't quite enough to convince me to start using it anyway. This video is about some of the other differences between British homes and American homes. No washing up bowls will be harmed in the making of this video because I don't have one, because I think they're stupid. But I went through my house and I came up with some more differences that we could talk about, so let's just jump right into it. So one of the lesser known differences about British and American homes, and this is also I want to put out there right now before anybody from elsewhere in the US comments below. My experience in the US was in Florida and Pennsylvania mostly. Especially in Florida, we're definitely gonna have a different way of doing things because of the climate. And again, I have always pretty much lived in the southeast of England, London, and other places in the southeast. So my comparisons between the two kinds of homes have that in mind. If you are from elsewhere in the States or somewhere else in the UK and you do it differently, I would love for you to comment below and let me know. Okay, so the first thing that I put down was the concept of an airing cupboard. First of all, cupboard is a word in the US that we use not as much as they would use in the UK, but cupboard, an airing cupboard here would be, think of a closet that's kind of like a short closet, not like a giant walk-in closet or anything, but a closet. They would call it an airing cupboard. And it has the hot water tank in it. And so what that means is that it's going to be relatively warm in this cupboard, and people will use it to kind of put some of their clothes or towels in just to keep them warm, dry them out completely. And in Florida, we definitely do not have anything like an airing cupboard. Our hot water tank was actually in the garage. It was also about double the size of the hot water tank here in a UK house. So if you said airing cupboard to a British person, they would know what you're talking about, or maybe there's a different word for it depending on the region, but they would probably have seen one. In the US, if you say airing cupboard, people usually won't know what you're talking about, especially in the southeast, and in Florida, we had nothing of the sort. Okay, the next difference, and I don't think I mentioned this in my first video, are heated towel rails, which are incredible, and I really feel like we should start to use way more in the US. But a heated towel rail is basically a built-in metal place to store your towels, and you pump heat through it, whether it's electric or whether it is attached to the main heating system. And it basically means that when it's time to dry off or to use your towels, they are nice and warm. These things can get scalding. I have accidentally scalded my hands on it by touching it when it was at the peak of its heat, but these are a really nice way to stay warm and to stay dry and to keep your towels always feeling like they've just come out of the dryer, especially in a colder and damper climate like we have in the UK. Obviously, Florida has no need for a heated towel rail. We just hung up our towels on the back of a door or in the bathroom, and we did not have any sort of heated drying component. Okay, the next thing on my list has to do with windows. So the windows that I'm used to in the US, if you think about windows in a home, often they are going to open kind of sliding up. So you're gonna unlock the window. I'm trying to think how we would lock a window. You would lock a window with you wouldn't have a key in my house in the US. This is now making me question windows in the US, but I know that I know there wasn't a key. So there was not a key to the window to open it, but you would open it from the bottom. So you would put your hands under the bottom and push up, and it kind of just slides up and down. Here in the UK, I am much more familiar with, and I think most homes First of all, they will have like an actual locking component with a small key for the window. A lot of people leave the key in there, and so you don't usually think of using a key to open it because it might be in there already. You might like push down on like a button on the handle on the window if it's unlocked, and you usually push a window out. So I'm looking at my window right now, and actually one of the sides doesn't even open. It's just one of the sides that does. So there's like a window pane that is never opening, and then a side that you can push out and pull back in, not up and down. So that is a very long-winded way to say that, especially again in Florida, the windows in the UK and US homes are different. Now, another thing about windows is in the US, it is much more common, and this also has to do with doors, to have a screen on it. And this is to keep insects out. So if you were to open my window in the US, you would open the actual window part, but there would still be a screen on the other side. Similar with a lot of people's doors, you would have like the main door and then a screen door. And again, this is in the Southeast, in Florida, we do have a lot of insects, but this is also more popular across the states in America. In the UK, I've never seen any type of screen on any type of window, on any type of door. You open that window and you are at the mercy of whatever's gonna fly inside. And people will probably comment and say, yes, America has more insects than we do in the UK. Maybe true, but there are definitely times when we have had to chase things around our house, or in the summer in particular, like flies seem to find their way in, not because our house is dirty, but they're just, I don't know where they come from, but there is nothing to stop them. There is no sort of insect screen or any type of screen. You open your window and you're opening it to all of the insects that may be flying by in the summer to come into your house. So this is definitely a difference between British homes and a lot of American homes, is the screen or no screen on the window. Now, moving on to the kitchen, I wanted to talk about a relatively obvious difference if you have ever been to a British home or American home, or seen an American home on television if you're from the UK. The refrigerators in the US are so much bigger than the fridges here in the UK. So that obviously comes down to house size and how it is more popular because of more land to have a larger house in America. I'm not necessarily saying this relates to somebody who's living in like a studio apartment in New York City, but in general, if we're thinking of a stereotypical British home versus American home, an American fridge is just, I don't know the percentage bigger, but I can tell you they are much, much bigger. Some people here in the UK will actually only have room for like a half height fridge, but even if you do have a full height fridge and freezer combined, often it will just be like one side of each. Whereas, you open one single door. A lot of American kitchens will actually have two different doors. My mom's fridge, you open the right-hand door and then you can open the left-hand door, and then you can like pull out a giant freezer below. And I'll put some pictures here so you can see what I'm talking about, but they are smaller fridges here in the UK, and they often don't have as many different kinds of fancy things on them. So in the US, I'm more used to seeing people who have like ice dispensers built into their fridge. People are getting very fancy now, so there are even like touch screens and stuff on their fridge. I'm sure people in the UK do have that. I actually know somebody who does have an ice dispenser built into their fridge. So I'm not saying that it's not a thing here, but it is much, 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 much less common. And this also kind of goes along with how I feel like British people will tend to go to the supermarket to buy food more often and buy less. Because they're buying fresh and they don't have as much space at home, whereas Americans will tend to go to the grocery store a bit less but buy more because they have more room to store it. Something else related to the kitchen is a garbage disposal. So if you are from the US, you'll know what I mean. A garbage disposal is where we put our food in the US in a lot of homes, and one part of the sink, because we mostly have double sinks, so you'll have one side of the sink that basically is going to within like the hole of the sink. You couldn't necessarily see this, but it's definitely there, are going to be like a bunch of blades, and you put any of your food, what they would call scraps here in the US or in the UK, you would put any extra not good to eat like scrap food in there, you turn on the garbage disposal, everything whirs, and there goes your food down the sink. They do not have garbage disposals as standard in the UK. So if you put food down a UK sink, you are doing it wrong. You put the food scraps here, usually in what they would call the food bin, and actually most places will take these with your recycling and your garbage, rubbish each week. So we do not put food down the sink here. We put it in a separate food bin. And this is definitely a huge culture shock for many Americans moving to the UK because they think or expect there to be some sort of garbage disposal, and there is not. And similarly with Brits coming to the US, I know every time the garbage disposal goes on in my parents' house, my husband is like fascinated and also kind of horrified what sound is coming from our sink as things get sucked down it. That's another kitchen difference between the US and the UK. Okay, so the last thing I wanted to talk about was related to washing machines. And washing machines in the UK, I've already talked about, it's much more common to have it in the kitchen in a lot of places, or you might have like a separate utility, but a lot of places don't have a just laundry room like we would in the US. Again, I'm not saying that some of you don't or that it's not possible. It's just not as common, especially in smaller places or near cities. But in general, an American washing machine is going to be much bigger than a British washing machine. It's going to be more of what the Brits would consider an industrial size washing machine. And also they are often top loading. So here in the UK, most of the washing machines that I have seen are front loading. So you open the door on the front, and this means that you can make the most of the space above it. So our washing machine is actually like built into underneath our kitchen countertop. We really need to make the most of the space in the kitchen. In the US, top loading means that you can't really make much use of the space above the washing machine or really in front of it because you still need to get to it. So this is more conducive to a larger home, but I am more used to, in the US, pulling open the top of a washing machine and pouring my clothes in the top that way, as opposed to opening it from the front. The dryers in the US, though, are more commonly front loading, and they are also usually front loading in the UK, so that's not as big of a difference, but they both are going to be usually much bigger than you would expect or experience here in the UK. This is just down to I was talking about the cultural differences in drying your clothes, how I have noticed that a lot of British people do tend to hang their clothes, and I have not seen that as common in the US, and also just down to the space that's available. So you can have bigger appliances in the US that aren't really worrying so much about space and are more worrying about how quickly you can wash or dry something. Whereas in the UK, you are also worried about how much space you have, as well as the efficiency and the energy usage. That's something that they pay more attention to, I've noticed here in the UK. So that brings me to my video on some more differences between British homes and American homes. Again, I would love for you to comment below and let me know if you disagree with any of these, if you have experienced any of these, or if you have any other differences that you have noticed or have thought about asking. I would love for you to join in the conversation below. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys next time.